Aloha.
Hello. I loved aloha. At one point, we'll have to do it from Hawaii. One
Hey,
of these chats.
that's the wife that is making me say hello, aloha. She's from Hawaii, but I love that word.
I love it. It makes it sound so exotic. We're gonna have
I
this like
know.
wild, fun, flowery conversation. Maybe we will. I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
see.
right.
Aw. Well, thank you everybody for joining. As everyone trickles in, I'll introduce our topic for today. I'll introduce myself and give Enrique the mic. So Enrique and I have known each other for a very long time. And we've been looking at what's going on in the market, what's happening in the world of work, what's happening in the global economy, and just consistently trying to make sense of it, looking for highlights and bright spots, but then also understanding some of the difficult things that are going on. And one of the continuous things from our conversation, it has been, we have so many incredible people in HR teams, people teams, and leadership teams that have had so much great experience growing companies, leading successful businesses, creating amazing cultures. But so much has changed over the
Hmm.
last year, a little bit longer. And so a lot of the questions that we've gotten is, hey, I've been very successful, but sometimes I feel like the rules are changing so much, and how much do I rely on my experience, how much do I rely on what's going on today, how much do I need to change. And so the thread that you're going to see between our conversation is really looking at ways, how do we balance that, how do we balance the incredible experience that all of you have, and like what would be our advice, and then how do you take in the data, what are good things to be asking, what are good things to be looking out for, and how do you reconcile maybe if sometimes it doesn't make sense together. What do you trust? Is it your gut? Is it the data? How do you combine? How do you experiment, etc.? So we thought it was a timely conversation, and I'm thinking since you're here with us, you probably think it's a timely conversation as well. So without further ado, I'll just share a couple of slides in a form of introduction, and then Enrique and I will go back and forth when we have some data to share. We'll share a slide, but a lot of it will be conversational. And
Mhm.
please do feel free to jump in with questions into the chat. We want to make sure we came, of course, with prepared information, but we also want to make sure as much as possible that this is interactive. If you have questions top of mind, there might not be exact answers, right? And I'm not here to say that Enrique and I are definitively going to say what, the future is going to, he laughs. He's like, absolutely not. But I think the more we can have conversations together and understand how do we think about things and how do we approach things, that has tremendous value in itself. So, um, who are we? Why are Enrique and I here leading this webinar? So my name is Sanja. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an organizational psychologist as of the last couple of decades. I am the president of employee experience at QuestionPro. Everything that I've done in my career has really been around finding ways to make people happy at work. And that's been trendy, not been trendy. Is happiness important? Is it not? I'm staying with it. I think it's important. I have data that shows how valuable it is to organization success. But it's really been my life's passion and my life's work. I currently reside in beautiful Buenos Aires, Argentina. I've lived all over the world. Many of my formative years in education were in the United States, originally from Serbia. So definitely looking at businesses in a very global way and trying to make sense of how we're moving and how we can leverage technology, but at the same time, how we can really maintain our incredible sense of humanity at the center of it all. So
Mhm.
as we navigate and as we're figuring out what's working well, maybe what's not working so well, and how do we adjust, just keeping people at the center of all of it and keeping that, you know, human desire, need, passion, and the want to make a difference in the place in the center of it. So that's me. Thank you for joining us. Enrique, could you please introduce yourself?
Of course, I can. Thank you, Sanja, for inviting me to be part of this conversation with you and your team at QuestionPro for putting this webinar together. Everybody who's joining us in any of the available channels, welcome. I hope that this is an interactive conversation and that you can ask your questions. My name is Enrique Rubio, and I am the founder of Hacking HR. We are a global learning community and platform for HR practitioners and leaders. I've been doing this for almost 10 years now. And what that has allowed me to do is have a pulse on all things people and all things HR in the workplace, which is a great pulse to have, by the way, considering how overarching and holistic and comprehensive the HR function is when it comes to understanding everything that is happening in a business. I come from the world of technology, however. I am an electronic engineer who moved into HR by an accident or a series of accidents of the universe. Here I am 15 years later, and I have enjoyed very much combining all things technology with all things HR, which is one of the reasons why I feel that um, I have an understanding of the implications of AI for humanity. Like Sanya said before, we're going to be sharing some of our ideas and insights informed or based on evidence and data. But again, it's hard to think that anybody could predict the future today. So whatever we talk about, right, Sanya, we talk about you take it with a grain of salt. We can be right or we could be wrong. Um, so that's the
Yeah.
conversation that we are about to have. So thank you once again for
They
inviting me.
Thank you, Enrique. It's amazing for you to be here. And I just you're such a bright light in our field. And I feel like you have this
Thank you.
incredible back. You giggle. You have this formed and you're so altruistic when it comes to really sharing your knowledge and giving back to the community. So we'll talk about hacking HR in a little bit, but for any of you who don't follow Enrique yet, and we'll share our contact information in the end, I would highly suggest that you do because the information that he puts out in the world, the workshops that he gives, and just the communities that he builds are second to none. Now, I've been a part of hacking HR. Goodness, 8 years, nine. I don't know. Maybe I was one of your
At
first
least,
members.
at least,
I know.
let's say
Now
that.
that I'm
Yeah.
like quantifying, I'm like, oh wow,
Well,
it's really been a long time.
2020 through 2023 or 24, it's like all blurred and mixed together, and it sounds like if it was just 1 year. But yeah, it's been a long time.
Yes, I know. We're blurring right. That's how I'm 26 again. Just some years disappeared in the past. Don't giggle at that. I'm teasing. I'm teasing. Um, real quick before we jump into the data, I also just wanted to share who is Question Pro, and then I'll let Enrique talk a little bit more about hacking HR because oftentimes when we've had these conversations, people would come, away and say like, "That was a really great conversation," but like, what do you all do for a living? Like, why are you passionate about this? Why are you talking about this? So, as I mentioned before, I'm an organizational psychologist and I do lead the employee experience business unit at QuestionPro. And QuestionPro is a global organization. We have a research arm, a customer experience arm, and an employee experience arm. And so we've really been on the forefront of researching and understanding and having so many conversations to understand better how the world around us is evolving to help people have more informed decisions, arm them with the right information around how to shape their business, where to grow it, where to make changes. And particularly when it comes to employee experience, it's just been a really fascinating time. And we'll share some of the market research that we've done, but we're moving so incredibly fast. And the way we connect with employees, the way we ask them how they're doing, what we do with that information is just evolving more rapidly than it ever has. And so that's what I do for a living. I work with organizations to help them shape the conversations they have with their employees in the spirit of creating the best culture that in turn will shape and create successful businesses. So that's a little bit about Question Pro. Enrique, would you like to tell us a little bit more about your incredible hacking HR community, which now we've established is like 100 years old?
100 years with a bunch of years in between that feel like
Yeah.
one. But yeah, we are a global learning community and platform for HR leaders and practitioners from all over the world. We put together multiple events and multiple learning programs every year. We have one of the most extensive learning ecosystems in the world. And without a doubt, we are the most affordable network for an ecosystem for learning for HR people anywhere in the world. So I'm hoping that the community members or the attendees to this webinar go and check it out. I'm going to be sharing the QR code at the end for them to take a screenshot and check out all of our offering. So that is that for Hacking HR for now.
Thank you, Enrique. So I'll go in and share a slide with a few data points, and then we'll pop out of the slide, and Enrique and I will discuss what does that mean and what could be the implications. And we'd love to hear from all of you. So we'll share these slides and then, but if you want to have the information handy after we pop out of the screen and have a discussion, please feel free to take a screenshot. So we ran a study several months ago and asked people across the United States and Europe a few questions about their use of AI and how are they feeling and what is their organization doing to support them. And so these are just a few highlights that in our preparation for today stood out to Enrique and me that we wanted to share with you and again discuss what do they mean. So the first one is that 95% of employees have already tried AI at work, mandate or not. There are a lot of things that come to mind. And again, I'll just touch on these and then we'll have a deeper discussion. But as you're looking at this, I know what's top of mind for a lot of organizations is one is the security thing. What are people using? Are they not, are we not licensing some AI tools and they're giving our company information and it's going who knows where, our proprietary information, our safe information, that if we license AI, we're going to have some spicy conversation toward the end. But a lot of organizations, Uber was one of them, was saying like, hey, we already went through our AI budget in the first 4 months of the year. Is this worth it? What do we do? So interesting that for organizations, like how much do you invest? What do you invest in? But people are using it anyways, which is good. But then how do we most effectively manage that? And we'll discuss that as well. 64% say that their organization requires AI use in their work. And I would say this data is a few months old. It may even be higher now because I feel like anywhere you turn, it's like AI, just use AI for everything. It'll solve like all the world's problems. There's still some professions where maybe it's a little bit less possible to do that, but certainly this race towards, use AI or you're going to be left behind is really loud and clear. What's also interesting, if you look at the gap, there's actually more people using AI than organizations are mandating. So what could that mean? Another stat is that 68% of people feel more fulfilled since using AI at work. I think that could be a pretty deep discussion, so I'll leave that one for us to chat about after. And then 41% say the workload has increased since using AI. There's a lot of talk around efficiencies for AI. Can we do more with less? But now half the people are saying my workload has increased. Now, does that mean they're taking on more assignments? Is it taking them longer to do something because they're also learning AI at the same time? What does that mean? Have organizations actually built in a learning curve? Or are people afraid that they're going to be penalized because they're thinking, wait a minute, on the one hand, you're asking me to use AI in my assignments, but I need to learn how to use it. It's not like magic that I'm just going to, start pressing buttons and figure it all out. So what happens if it takes me longer to get something done? Is my organization expecting that? And are they used to that? So we have a few more data points, but I'll pop out for now because Enrique, I want us to double click on this and talk about what's surprising or what's not surprising. Like even when you looked at those numbers, was the AI usage high? Were you surprised? Or were you expecting more organizations to be forcing use? What would your recommendation be for what do organizations do with AI? Like I even know at QuestionPro, we have some AI license. People are experimenting with others and we're saying, okay, but like we can't pay for all the platforms for all of our employees. It's going to be incredibly expensive. So what's a reasonable way, responsible way to experiment, but how do we continue to allow for experimentation? And when is free good enough? When is it then like you get to Claude and you're like, sorry, you've time to like, no more for today. And you're like, assignments. Anyways, would love just your reactions of what you're seeing in this information and what you think for for our friends that have joined us when they are seeing this, like, what do they make out of it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, of those four data points, probably the only one that may be a little bit more surprising to me is the one that says that people are finding more fulfillment and meaning in the work they do
Mhm.
because of AI. So I'm going to imagine that the reason for that number to be so high is that they may have these people who responded that probably are putting more time into activities that are more human, more meaningful. Maybe the
Mm,
reasons why they are doing that job in the first place, they are putting more time into that because the transactional, administrative, boring, tedious kind of activities from their
yeah.
day-to-day work are being done by AI. So that's the only number perhaps that kind of like jumped out of or popped up to me when you showed me the data for the first time. I'm going to imagine that that's possibly the reason that would explain why that number. The second number of people finding that they have more work now in the age of AI, that to me is pretty obvious because I am going through that myself. It is very clear that you're trying to move away from the sun. So half your face is like half your face is in the dark. No, I'm just kidding.
It was
Well,
so cloudy this morning. I think I'm gonna have to put my shades down a little. Like, all of a sudden, as soon as we started recording, the sun came out and
it's
there's
like,
drilling outside. So I'm seeing like my mic
oh,
pick up the drilling. I'm like, but it's okay. It's okay.
hey,
We
hey,
go
that's
with
that that's
it.
humanity, right? I mean, AI tries to make it perfect, but hey, that's the nature of being human. We just gotta play it by ear. But anyway, I was commenting before on that number of the 41% of the people saying that now they find themselves having more work to do. And to me, I mean, it's just by sheer direct observation, I feel that in my own life and in the life of the people in my team. Since we are using AI for so many things, what that has allowed us to do is unleash a lot more creativity, a lot more imagination, a lot more of the dreams that we had before that we could never build because we never had the tools to build them, and now we can. So
Yeah.
in reality, if we dig a little deeper into that number, if somebody tells you I have more work doing the exact same thing with AI, then we have a problem. But I'm going to imagine that the most common reality will be I'm using AI to do this. I'm using AI to, so of the five things that I was doing before, I'm using AI to do them faster, better, and more efficiently, each one of them. But I'm adding five more things. And I am adding five more things because I'm taking time back from the five original things that I was doing that now AI is helping me with. And I am adding five more projects that I'm using AI for. Five projects that, number one, maybe I've always wanted to do and I never had the time to do, or maybe my organization said, well, we're paying all this money for AI tools for you. Therefore, we would imagine that you are going to have more time to do other projects. By the way, one thing to say here is that there's a limit to that, right? There's a point in time when you start hitting the diminishing marginal returns. If you are doing five projects, you use AI, you free up time, you add other five projects, you use AI. That is not an infinitum. Like that doesn't last forever. At some point, you won't be able to keep up with all the projects. So there's a limit to that. But that's what I would imagine. That's what I imagine is happening. So those are
Yeah.
the two numbers that are very interesting to me. The fact that people are using AI and the fact that so many organizations are making it mandatory, I think that was pretty clear from the very first time that I used AI that that was going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I wanted to actually share the next stat real quick because it totally aligns with what you were saying before. So, out of the people who
No.
said their workload has increased, 82% said they're more fulfilled. So, one of the things that we were highlighting here in the research is again, I think at the beginning when AI was coming in, it was such a big efficiency play, and that you're going to be able to do more, or like do things more quickly, get things done faster. It's not necessarily going to give you more work. I do think that there, like I was mentioning before, two things at play. I think one is that it's really important to give people the space to learn how to use AI because depending on how you're using it, it is going to take time. Like it's not a
Mm.
magic box where you just hook things up and they magically work. Like doing a search in one of the AI, tools is not that hard, but connecting them with the different documents, connecting them with the technology, that gets more complex.
Yeah.
And you also need to be so mindful that the information that it's giving you, it's correct, right? Like while you're setting things up. But what was also interesting is, so in our context at QuestionPro, we have weekly company town halls, and one of the managing directors, it was just last week, he was showing this like demo that he put together for a survey, and it was for market research, part of our business. And he was saying, like, now when I go to a prospect, I can actually scrape data and
Mm.
populate the survey with the data that would really look like their own. So it's no longer this like generic, like, oh, look at our survey platform and this is where we're going to click around. Like it already tells a story in the demo. And so one of my colleagues said, wow, that's really amazing. How much time did it save you? And he was like, oh, none. It actually took a lot more time, but I'm a lot more,
To
not a
set
lot,
up.
he didn't say a lot. It took more time, but I feel a lot better about going into this client meeting showing this information than it would have been something very generic. So while it might have not saved me time and maybe it added some, I feel like I'm set up for much more success in my job. So that was one example. And the other one, so we're there's this conference called Torreos that happens in Chicago every year. I wish
I
every
don't think they
week.
want to do it every
And
week. By the way,
I know every
you're gonna
week,
kill
I
those
know.
people, man.
You're like, it's an event to organize every week's a terrible idea. So it happens every year. And I'm actually leading a closing panel where where we're talking about how can AI help improve humanity? How can it help
Mm.
give people more purpose and do more work? And so for the people who are on my panel that are going to be discussing different things, it's really interesting because in particular to HR, they were saying they're able to build these different experiences where if a person needs information, one, in the journey, like they can choose, do I want to interact with AI or do I want to interact with a human? And some of them are systematically finding, like, hey, if it's like a bereavement notice or if it's something related to PTO or something that's emotional, people prefer to talk to people. And
Mm.
so imagine being that person in HR that was like before, like answering all these like different questions, and you're just like, oh my God, just look at the document, look at the internet, or like, why does this not match up? But now you're really there for your colleagues in the moment where they need you the most. So to me that really resonated because again it's maybe it didn't take work away from you, and maybe while these workflows and employee journeys are changing, it's taking a little bit longer because that's like the one thing we know right about AI is that you can't slap AI on top of a bad process because it's not going to improve it. It's just maybe going to make a bad process faster. So for the companies that are doing it right, they're like mapping out the workflows and fixing them while oftentimes simultaneously automating some things or putting in agents. But when you're seeing, when you can walk away from work and feel like, you know what, like, oh, something's broke today, and we realize that there's something like still not working in this workflow, but like, wow, Mary really needed me today. And because of this, I was able to show up for her. And that going home makes me feel really good. So those are
Yeah.
the kinds of things for us to think about, but that might not always happen, right? I'm sure for everyone that something like that is happening with, there are people that are just overwhelmed and doing a lot. And to your point earlier, it's like just because you're giving somebody AI, that like there's still a limit to how much you can get done. We need to be realistic about the expectations. But I'll pop out of this now, but I just wanted to share this because it was actually really aligned with what you were saying before, that it's not just a dream that people are going to be
Mhm.
able to use AI and feel more fulfilled, but it's got to be very intentional. And we've got to be fixing these workflows in the meantime and paying attention and getting feedback on it to make sure we're really getting the most out of it.
Yeah. Well, one thing that to me is very, very clear about AI. Most companies right now, all they are talking about is how do we become more efficient, how we increase our productivity. That conversation, as important as it is incredibly lazy. And I've been very outspoken about it being lazy uh, because the truth is that there's another part of the power of AI, which is the largest part of the power of AI, which is the value that we've always wanted to create, if we even had that in our imaginations, by the way. the value that we wanted to create, or the value that we want to create that we could never realize because we never had the tools to do so, right? So in all of my programs, I always ask people, what are those things that you've always wanted to build? And I'm not talking about hardware, by the way. I'm not talking necessarily about things in the physical world. I mean, we're talking about AI here. Um, so what are those things that you've always wanted to build, for your workplace, for your life as an entrepreneur, whatever it is, that you could never build because the barrier of entry was incredibly large? So, whether it is, I just finished a program where there was one guy who built an entire leave management tool, and I hope he does very well, by the way. He built the entire thing in my program, and he said, you know what, we've been struggling with this. So because of what we're doing in this program, I decided to build my own. I'm not saying that he's been dreaming with building a leave management tool, but he knows that this is a challenge that they have in their
Yeah.
workplace, and he builds it. But for hacking HR, for me and my team, there are things that I've always wanted to build the barrier of entry, because I'm a technologist, but I'm not a software developer. So I could never build them, to build them with other people. A lot of time, resources that we didn't have. Now we can build them because of AI. That's creating value. It's not just telling somebody, send emails faster, create a chatbot that responds to questions faster. Those things are important, but that's pure efficiency. You know, uh, do this, I don't know, whatever it is that we currently do manually, do that faster using AI. That is important, but that's pure efficiency and pure productivity. And I think that, to me, is a natural part of the conversation of any technology. What do we have that plugging in technology will help it make it better and faster? That's not the real conversation that we should be having in the world of AI. The question is, what can we solve for that we could never solve before? What can we build that we've always wanted to build that we could never build? What are our customers asking us for that we could never give them because we didn't have the tools to build those things for them?
Yeah.
That's the conversation of value. It is the things that are not yet realized, that are maybe just in our heads, that we could never build because of the barrier of entry. Now we can build those things. That, to me, should be the real power of the AI conversation. Will we find ourselves being more busy if we start making current things more efficient with AI and thinking about value? Definitely yes. But to me, the fact that I find myself a lot busier than I was before, it is true. I'm working almost 2 times as much as I worked before AI.
Mhm.
But the truth is that the new things that I'm working on are incredibly exciting for me, right?
Yeah.
Because they are things that I'm like, oh my gosh, 5 years I dreamed of doing this. I never had the chance. Here it is. Now I can do it. So it may be more work, but I think it's the more meaningful work, the more valuable work, the work that maybe nobody else is doing. And again, that, to me, is incredibly exciting. That's the real value of this conversation.
Yeah. When you look at HR teams and finding, like, I loved as you were talking, I imagined this like green field and have like people kind of standing and somebody saying like, okay, go. And everyone just starts running and they're like, where are we running to? Like, I don't know, but go faster. Just run. But it's like, but where? Like, it doesn't matter. Just go, go. So to your point that like, what are we trying to solve? What is that challenge? What does a solution look like? Like, what are the different, it's almost like I've been in product development most of my career. So I'm always thinking about like who's my end customer and what are their
Yeah.
needs? And you have like different personas. So what are your like employee personas? How much are you seeing in HR today that HR has the autonomy to decide what are these different things that we're solving for versus having it be something like coming from like a CEO or COO saying like you need to do that? Like, where is it from ground up versus I've been mandated to focus on this? Or one other thing that my guess is like for a lot of technology, sometimes they're like, oh, we need to cut this expense, figure out how to do without this. Like, how are you seeing those conversations happen? Because in my opinion, like ideally it'll be coming from HR and they understand the use cases and they understand the challenges. But I also know that in reality, oftentimes like that's not really the case.
No. Yeah. Well, there was a research, and I want to say McKinsey, but don't quote me on that if I'm wrong. I just used it in my program that ended about a month ago, where most companies have AI tools and their people are using AI, but only so it's like 90% of all companies are doing that, but only like 6% of them have captured financial value because of using AI. So that is a big threshold in there, right? That's a big gap. Um, so I'm saying this because there we have AI and we're using it, but it's just like running without direction, right? And I feel that we have to move here at two different speeds.
Mhm.
Speed number one is yes, we need to use AI just to become a lot more familiarized and more comfortable at using the technology. That is the experiment, but that doesn't mean running without direction. We still need direction. So it's not just using a tool for the sake of using the tool. You have to pursue a goal, and if it's an experiment, even the experiment has to pursue a goal, which is the reason why most
Yeah.
experiments fail, because they don't have a goal in the first place. They don't have metrics. They don't have a path to scale or to deprecate that one experiment. So that's one speed that we should be implementing, right? So it is telling people, we know that you're using AI, so these are the tools that we recommend. These are the guardrails that you have to keep in mind. And you know these are the 10 things that this company needs to resolve for. We don't know how to solve them. If anybody wants to play with the AI tools and solve for those problems, that is like an innovation exercise, a mastermind
Mm.
exercise. And then you let them run with it a little bit with some level of freedom, just because you want to make sure that people are getting themselves familiarized and comfortable with using AI. But there are some other things that has to be a lot more, I don't want to call them prescribed, but they have to be a lot more within very specific boundaries. Okay, so yes, these 10 things that we are letting you run with are our dreams, right? But we need to resolve for this other problem that we have right now. It is
Mhm.
taken us, I don't know, 3 days to respond to every customer request. We need to go from 3 days to one day. That is a problem that we need to resolve now, and we need to use AI. We're not going to hire three times more people to decrease, from 3 days to one day. So we need to resolve this with AI. So IT, HR, customer experience, legal, you guys meet and you solve for this. There's a lot more prescription behind that, but more in terms of the goal, what you want to achieve, the problem that
Yeah.
you want to resolve, and then you use AI for that. One other thing that I want to say is, um, again, this is like, coming from the top down, and it has to come also a little bit from the bottom up, right? Because people that are in the trenches, they are seeing the reality of AI play out, or the reality of their function play
Yeah.
out day by day, right? So it has to be in both directions. I do not believe, however, that you can just let the AI capability building or the AI fluency building or the AI implementation and adoption just happen by sheer good luck or by mandate, where you say everybody has to use AI now and that's the end of it. I do believe that there has to be a centralized unit in a company. It doesn't necessarily have to be like an office of AI. You don't have to, I always call it the office of a strategic AI integration, but it has to be maybe a collection of functions that come together to discuss, how they will implement AI, how they will set up the guardrails, what is the future of the company in the age of AI. That to me has to be centralized, just because AI can get really, it's like tentacles everywhere, and it can get
Yeah.
out of control. The costs can get out of control. So there has to be a central
Yeah.
team managing this. So that's and HR has to be there. By the way, I know we're talking about this in very general terms, but HR has to be there. And ideally, in my view, HR should be leading the way. HR does not
Mm.
need to be a technologist to lead the way. You have to understand the basic. Obviously, if somebody tells you some specific AI jargon, you have to understand what they are talking about. So you have to have some baseline. But I believe HR, in theory anyway, is well positioned to be leading the way forward, to bring together this team, to create the opportunities for collaboration and the opportunities for transformation.
No, absolutely agree. And any successful project, it takes different subject matter experts, it takes different kinds of perspectives. And so for people that are understanding like on the ground the challenges, you cannot have their voice. Like when you were talking about the customer experience, and I promise I won't digress, but I can't not say it. Like um, there was a day last week where I had a challenge with my passport, my bank account, like it just piled on, and all the automation, I was just like, oh my God, human. just get me to a human, because every time I touched a button, it would take me to a wrong place. Or if I would put in
Yeah.
my debit card, but it was calling for one thing, it routed me somewhere else. And I was like, I understand the efficiencies, but I'm like, this is more. Just,
Yeah.
and I kept saying, remember back in the day, you could say representative and it would take nope.
Yeah.
That
And, and,
loophole is
and
gone.
back in the day, it was like somebody would pick up the phone, right?
Yeah. Pick up
Yeah.
the phone. Then it was like at least you could press zero or beg for somebody. Now it's like tough luck. Like you got to find
Yeah.
your way through the maze. But next thing I wanted us to talk about, and the time is flying. We still have two more points at least. And please, if you guys have any questions or anyone
We
wants
talk too
to
much.
jump
We
in with
talk
a
too much.
comment, let me know. So in all the research that I've done with employee surveys and asking people what makes them passionate about their work and why do they stay with the organization, like by and far, relationships with others at work have been like at the top. Like that's a
Mhm.
lot of times like what really drives people, like getting help from others, feeling a sense of community is a really, really big part of organizational culture. So I'll try not to get too emotional about the slide that I'm going to share next, but this is something that I would love for all of you who are with us to think about. I presented this at conferences before, and people have taken a step back saying this is not exactly things that we measure in our organization, but we really should. Um, so I was at a conference a few weeks ago where we talked about the loneliness pandemic, and there's an article from United Nations that says every hour 100 people die of loneliness related causes. So sit with that for a minute. It's gotten worse since the pandemic. It's a really tough number. It's a number that's not improving. Now, there, I get questions. Was it an organization's responsibility to fix this? Is it, more on a human individual level? The data that we have seen, again, if you look at any driver analysis, relationships with others impact productivity, they impact retention, they impact the key KPIs most organizations measure. So, if you want to look at any of that data for how relationships impact those outcome variables, I promise you, you're more than likely to have it in your survey data. Now, in one of our studies, we also found that 54, so more than half percent of employees feel AI is impacting the way they connect with others at work.
Mhm.
All right. So if we sit with that for a minute, we think about like efficiencies and getting to information faster. And it's really amazing that we can have these different platforms where we can ask a question to AI that we maybe used to ask a colleague and get an answer a lot faster. And we're directed to do that more often than not. And so for a lot of people, especially I would say who are individual contributors, their interactions, organic interactions in the organizations tend to be lower than maybe managers who are meeting with their team members who tend to be in more meetings. As much as our TO had these, aspirations that people are going to be bumping to each other at the water cooler and having these really great lunches, the reality is that a lot of people are still at their desk and a lot of people are eating lunch at
Mhm.
their desk, and there's not, as much as we want these sparks to be happening, they're not necessarily there. So to me, this really stops me in my tracks, because whether you're measuring it through surveys, whether you're measuring it through organizational network analysis, whether you're asking about it in focus groups, this is a conversation that we absolutely need to have.
Yeah.
We cannot leave this a chance, and we cannot assume that this is not something that's an organizational problem. So I know I've sat with this data for quite a while. Enrique, what would your advice be to people seeing this? Like I don't know if it's incredibly shocking to me. Seeing a concrete number though really did take my breath away, because it's maybe something I expected to happen, but maybe not this fast and to this degree.
Yeah. I'm not shocked by the number because I had already seen it like a while back. Um, in the, I believe it was maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, the former US Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, he talked about, he created he talked about loneliness as an epidemic and a pandemic, and they put out a framework to address loneliness. And he said, it became very famous, by the way. He said, loneliness is the equivalent, or being alone, feeling lonely, is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That's how much it reduces your lifespan. Um, so it is really powerful, right?
Yeah.
The effects of loneliness. So we can bring a bunch of data points together. So that's one thing. The second thing is that the world does feel a lot more disconnected than it ever was before. The promise of technology has always been to help us do things faster, better, so that we can free up some time to do more meaningful things. That hasn't really happened that much, because otherwise we wouldn't be seeing the engagement numbers be at the same level, and the levels of happiness, like plummet, etc. Right? So, and we have technology. We've had great technology. Then the promise of social media, when the rise of social media happened in the mid 2000, something, uh, was to bring us closer together. And right now, most of the social media platforms are not for that. They are actually the opposite to that. They have split us apart, increased polarization, loneliness, isolation more than ever before. Will AI drive us to the same result? That question, I think, is, the answer to the question is for us to resolve. I think if we let the technology run its course on its own, I do feel that the consequences will be catastrophic for humanity, catastrophic for the younger generations, by the way, who are more lonely than anybody else. Especially teenagers, especially male teenagers, by the way, lonelier than they've ever been. So if we let the technology just do its own thing without guardrails, without safeguards, without government intervention, without leadership at the business level intervention, I do believe the consequences would be catastrophic for society and for humanity. But that question will not be resolved by AI. If you go to AI today and you ask it, should I regulate AI so that it doesn't increase the level of loneliness that we're seeing in the world? AI will respond, yes, you should. AI will never say no. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I should be the one taking over this. I'm going to resolve this problem. AI will never say that. AI will
Yeah.
say, you should do something about it, but you, not me, you as the
Yeah.
human. So it is
Yeah.
on us to do something about this. So part of what happens in the workplace is we need to intentionally create the conditions for people to talk to each other, to collaborate with each other, to put the freaking AI, phone, computer away, and to have sessions where you actually use your brain. Which, by the way, we don't have any data point to show about that today, but there's enough research, limited in scope, but it's enough research as of now to show that using AI without safeguards is reducing our capacity to remember things, our skill acquisition, our knowledge acquisition. So we may be becoming dumber if we don't put the guardrails on this. So if you just let people and you let the technology run its own course on its own, and you don't provide intentional opportunities for people in the workplace to connect with each other at a human level, then that is letting the
Yeah.
technology run its course. And then you're going to have to deal with some issues down the road, which are not just issues for your company, are issues for society in general. So all I'm saying is, uh, to me, AI is one of the most incredible things that I've ever seen in my life. It is powerful. It's allowed me to do things that I never thought that I was able to do. But I am incredibly aware of the danger, the potential catastrophic consequences of letting AI, operate without any safeguards, and that includes this level of loneliness. I'm gonna say one more thing, by the way, but I know we don't have a lot of time. There is enough data points and enough stories of AI. I don't want to say misleading people, because I don't think it's AI with malice misleading people, but
Yeah.
it ended up misleading people anyway. There are multiple stories of teenagers who have died by suicide, encouraged by the AI tools that they were using. There are enough stories of adults who have harmed themselves, if not outright dying by suicide, encouraged by AI. There are multiple stories, and most of these cases, or a lot of these cases, are in litigation right now, by the way, because the
Mhm.
families of these people have sued those companies. There are multiple
Mhm.
cases of adults that have interacted with AI when they were dealing with very difficult and distressing situations. There's a story of one guy who had just broken up with a girlfriend. The guy was going through all this very difficult time. In the conversation with AI, more and more and more, AI ended up telling him, "You can fly. Go to the 19th floor of your building and jump out the window." And the guy said, "This is too insane. It's too much." There's another guy who wanted to save the world from climate change catastrophe, and the guy ended up spending an hour a day, couple of hours a day with AI. At some point, the guy ended up spending 20 hours a day. The family was like, "What's going on here?" And he started to embrace these fringe ideas and conspiracy theories about the world. This is because the unregulated interactions with AI. Now, AI is not deciding, "I'm going to take this person and I'm going to make them harm themselves." That's
Mhm.
AI is not making that decision. It is because we need, as humans, we are the ones who should be putting the guardrails on this, the safeguards on this. Anyway,
Yeah.
it is up to us to decide whether we live in a world where there are 100 people dying every hour of loneliness, or we put a stop to that by controlling the causes of that, one of which is AI and will continue to be AI unless we control it.
Yeah. Well, I was nodding so hard, I thought I was gonna like pull my neck at some point. Great. I'm like, wait, stop. No, it is. I mean, it's something that you're so right. We have to be so careful about personally and professionally. And going back to the question of whose responsibility it is all of ours. And I
Yeah.
promise you, if you need a business reason, if you need to justify to someone, pull your data, you will have those connections. Like, that it is impacting organizational KPIs, business KPIs, that it's not something, if you take it on in your organization, it's something altruistic. It's something good for humankind, but it is something that's good for business. So I think we're going to need to continue to think about how do we measure it? How do we bring home the point? But it is just changing so fast, and that isolation, it seems to be like exponentially growing,
Mm,
that we very urgently in organizations need to do something. And it could be, again, just rethinking also the culture. And we want people to have relationships, we want people to come together.
mm.
um, but it's going to have to be a lot more intentional
Yes.
and a lot more of a priority than I think it ever has been before, for us
Yeah.
to have it
I,
sustainable.
I just want to
So
say,
yeah.
one last thing.
Yeah.
And this is the entire conversation has been really important, but this is critical as we design organizations for the future. Whatever crappy stuff you have going on in your workplace, AI will not resolve it. You know, there's the guy, I'm not going to mention the company. There's the guy from certain company who has become very public these days because he fired the entire HR team. That is a failing company. So after his company was failing, he said, "I am firing HR to be better." I'm like, "No, you are a disaster. You were a disaster before and after firing HR. So you're not solving the problem. You're just blaming the problem on somebody else." So AI will not resolve the problems that we have. We can use AI as a tool to help us think, to help us create things and build stuff. But ultimately, loneliness, the nature of work, most people find meaning in the workplace. Yes, there are things outside of the workplace that give us meaning, but the art of creating our craft, the meaning of creating something that you can say, "Wow, look at what I did." Generally, for most people, that happens in the workplace. So you have to design intentionally a workplace that allows them to do that, and AI will not do it on its own. This is a human conversation powered with and by AI, but it's a human conversation at the end of the day. So do not relinquish your brain capacity. That's what I tell people in all my programs. Do not relinquish your brain capacity to AI, because, well, you will be building a dumber generation and you will be building a dumber organization, and none of us want that. So, AI is so powerful, but the power and the limitations will ultimately depend on how we operate with this phenomenal, powerful, and
Yeah.
amazing tool that we have, at our fingertips these days.
No, absolutely. And with that, we'll end with one spicy announcement that went out in the news this week, and that I actually missed until today. I don't know how if I've been living under a rock, but if any of you have missed it, we wanted to make sure to share it with you. So there has been this job apocalypse. AI is going to take all the jobs. Watch out, there will be no more jobs. Everyone's going to lose jobs. A lot of companies have laid people off. And turns out now Sam Altman is saying that,
Hmm.
that probably won't happen. I think I was wrong. And in what I pulled this was, it's like in Fortune, Time, like it's all over the place. Same photo of the dude, similar story, but somewhat different spins in different places. And from Time Magazine, I pulled up this quote that said, "We really do care about our interactions with people," which he said, for better or worse, updated me to thinking that the jobs picture is likely to be very different than we thought.
You know,
I mean,
my
I don't
only
know if
thing,
I have okay words.
well, my only thing about this is the following. This is like listening to Elon Musk saying, people will not need to work. We're going to give them the money. I mean, that's very easy to do, to say if you are worth $1 trillion and you don't have to worry about anything or anybody for the rest of eternity, right? And I don't think any of us here is a billionaire. If you are, well, then don't worry. You're going to be fine. But I take everything that these people say, and when I say these people, I'm talking about the billionaires who are leading the world of AI. I take that with a grain of salt, because it is going to be very easy for him to say, Sam Altman or Elon Musk or Dario Amodei. It's going to be very easy to say in a year from now, "Oh, we were wrong about that too, and now you're all screwed." You know, so this is what I always do, Sanya. When people ask me, "Are we going to lose our job to AI?" My answer is always the same. I don't know, but I would get ready for that kind of a future. So what I'm saying with that is, let me put some fire under you, create a sense of urgency that you have to upgrade your thinking, upgrade yourself, find ways to diversify your skill, capability, financial portfolio, in any ways you can, because whether you lose your job or not, I don't know if that's necessarily something that we can predict, but if you do, and you already invested in all these things, you will be more ready than if you had listened to this and said, "Hey, but some old man said that there wasn't going to be any jobs apocalypse, but I'm losing my job." So what the heck is going on? So anyway, all I'm saying is, just make sure that you do invest in yourself. That is going to be a lot more critical. So don't listen to these people. That's a
Don't
headline.
listen one way or the other.
No, yeah, exactly. It's not like, I don't think the war is going to end, but I don't think anything will be the same anymore. So we're
Yeah.
going to be somewhere in between, right? So these headlines, take them with a grain of salt. Just listen to what this guy is saying. I mean, this guy is he's an incredibly brilliant and talented guy, but they just shoot out, whatever they want to put in the media at various points. So I take all of this with a real grain of salt. That's kind of like
Well,
the
it's
way
very
I
extremist
operate.
opinions, one where it's like, we're all going to lose our jobs. No, we won't. Okay, everyone use AI. It's expensive. So,
Yeah,
yes, the
yeah.
point is, stay informed, stay educated. Probably, hopefully, it's not ever in any, either extreme. But my hope is that maybe, he's more right now that like there's going to be changes, but maybe we're not going to be walking among robots in like 3 years, but TBD. But again, critical thinking, take it all with a grain of salt. But there
Yeah.
is now a new change in perspective. So as we start to wrap up, which Enrique, I can't believe an hour went by so fast. This is bananas. I did want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit more about hacking HR, the executive network that you're building, and just different ways that people can get involved.
That's hacking the charts. Sorry, I'm taking you to the pricing page, to the membership page. That's what this thing is going to take you. But just go there, click around, see all the things that we have going on, and we have a lot of things going on. So, a lot of activities, a lot of AI things. I see my friend Malvika here in the chat. She's going to be delivering I don't know, Malvika, if I can say. I think I can say it. She is delivering a program in September that I am so excited about. The program is AI for Women. This is so important because it is very clear, given that women generally, but data says that they are most of taking most responsibilities for all things, home care, family care, child care. It is very clear how overwhelming AI will impact women in the workplace. So I am hoping that you join us. Just look at the QR code, look at the program that Malvika is doing, and she's going to be leading this awesome conversation. She's an expert in AI and leading groups that are just dedicated to elevating the conversation of AI, particularly for how they will impact women and how women can get ready for this. That's one of the multiple programs that we have. So check it out.
Yeah, and as I was saying before, I think Enrique, it's absolutely incredible how much you do for the community and just the different levels of access for people, whether it's things that are completely complimentary to join memberships. And I know we're partnering. You're launching the executive network, and Question Pro is going to be providing
Thank you.
data to that group. And I think to me, that's we're just such big fans of you and hacking HR and both. So it was an honor to be able to be a part of that journey. But I would say for all of you listening, if you have not checked out all the different things that Enrique does, I certainly would, because you'll find yourself with a lot of really helpful information. So
Thank you. I
with
appreciate that.
that, no, of course, no, I'm your biggest fan. With that, I'll share our contact information one more time. I know we blocked off an hour. We promised you 45 minutes, but as you can tell, both Enrique and I are very passionate
We
about,
talk we
well,
talk a lot.
yeah, we're passionate and chatty. But if this has sparked any interest in projects for you inside your organizations, any collaboration, we love to always stay in touch, learn more, and learn from each other. So just sharing our contact information again, so that way you have it. Both of us are quite active on LinkedIn if you want to
Yeah.
connect with us, chat with us. Again, the purpose of our time today is that we don't know what the future is, but we're here because we're passionate in shaping it in a way that we believe would be right for people and right for businesses. And I think the only way we're going to be able to do that is we continue to do it as a community. No
Yeah.
single person can do it alone.
No. Love it. Thank you, Sanya, for inviting
Yes.
me, and thank you for your team. They are so awesome and treat all the speakers and the attendees and everybody so beautifully and well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Enrique. Thank you, team. And thank you, everybody who joined us. And thank you,
Thank you,
Malvika, for
everybody.
your incredible active contribution and interaction. We'll see you all soon. Take care,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.